What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Token, and I'm finally back with a brand new video. As I know it's been way too long, guys. I know there was a decent little hiatus that I had recently. Mainly that was due to the holiday season. I just wanted to focus more towards my energy, towards my relationship, and just making sure that I knew obviously YouTube is a priority and everything, but there is currently a lot going on with YouTube to where YouTube isn't the biggest priority in my life. It just is not. So as of late, I just made sure to focus a little bit more of my energy towards other priorities that do mean a little bit, decent bit more to me. My relationship with my girlfriend, other stuff that circulate around that same thing, my relationship, and as well as focusing my energy towards my job as well, trying to be a better employee and just focusing on just some other priorities that are just mean a little bit more to me right now in my life. However, though, I do still love YouTube, and definitely you'll see this face a lot more just because I'm done with my hiatus and we are going to be coming back very strong. I'm so excited for everything I've been working on, because there are things. It doesn't mean I haven't still been engaging and working on things behind the scenes, because I have. So I'm super excited for the future of our channel and can't wait to where we're going. Because another thing I've been doing a lot of is playing through Ultra Sun and Moon. I'm so tired of playing through these games. I just want to get through it. Even though I'm finally at the compelling point of the story where there's a lot of new additions to it, I still just want to be done with the game, just so that I could try to grab these mega stones and move on. And why am I getting a pop-up? What in the Lord? I better never get a pop-up ever again on Firefox, otherwise I'm going to be very upset. Either way though, guys, yeah, anyways, I really want to finish Ultra Sun and Moon so I can bring you guys in-game VGC battles. I can't wait to get into our VGC battle spot our VGC Battle Spot Laddering series, Climbing the Ladder. I can't wait to bring that back for you guys, and it's all in the works. I really do have a lot of responsibilities, so I haven't been able to focus too much energy towards beating those games, but I'm almost there. I barely have a little bit left. The Elite Four is coming right up, so I'll be done with those games here very soon, and I can't wait to be able to do all the in-game stuff that I'm just currently unable to bring to you guys. And then we'll obviously get back into the swings of our playthroughs. I just put that on a small hold while I did focus on some other things in my life, especially with the holiday season. I just thought this was a very crucial time for me to focus my energy towards some other priorities. However, though, we are in the full swing of things, and here I am with my first battle for the EPL, as I do know that you guys probably weren't even aware, but I am in the EPL, and this is week 2. As week 1, I actually just took a forfeit. I unfortunately told my opponent to battle on a day that I ended up taking OT. Very last minute, taking overtime at my job, so I told him I'd just take a forfeit and that he could just take the win. And then now we're here with week 2 against Jim, aka whatever his showdown name is supposed to spell out, and I think it's like Shut Up Rock 8. Yeah, Shut Up Rock 8. That's a very weird name, but I do not judge. Shoutouts to Jim. He has a very interesting team here. As looking at, alright, so the team that I brought is obviously the team we used in our Showdown Live recently. It's the Blaziken team that does consist of Blaziken, Amoonguss, Zapdos, Tapu Lele, Aegislash, and Salamence. So Blaziken with the Life Orb to get the Okaz it needs and to just be a threat, with its very solid coverage for VGC 18 of Hidden Power Ice, Overheat, and what is that last move? Close Combat. And then Amoonguss to support it, as Blaziken's very frail, so it likes to not take hits. Amoonguss to soak up those hits. Water type hits, soak them up. Flying type, that's the only one. They have that dual flying weakness, so Salamence isn't our friend, but obviously Blaziken, after speed boost, is faster than Salamence. It can do some very solid damage. Not always get the OHKO, but more than likely get the OHKO on most with in Power Ice and the Life Orb. Then we do have the notorious combination of Psychic Seed, Zapdos with Tapu Lele. We're not Z-Move. That's what I've mainly been seeing as the main item on Tapu Lele, Z-Move. But we're actually rocking out with the Choice Scarf, so that we can kind of bop some things before they actually get to move. I like the Choice Scarf on Tapu Lele. And then, last but not the last two to round out the team are Z-Move, Aegislash, because it's very, very strong. I like it a lot. And it's a typical set you'll see, just a standard investment in Z-Move. And then just Intimidate Salamence, and it's just still the team from our Showdown Live. Then my opponent's rocking out with a very interesting team of Alomomola, if I said that right, Kartana, Tapu Koko, Cresselia, Why could I not think of Aegislash's name? Who knows? Aegislash and Charizard Y, I'm assuming, because it doesn't look like X at all. I don't see anything supporting the usage of Charizard X here. Definitely was a chance, and I definitely went into game 1 still considering that, but it definitely looks like Y to me on this particular team. So looking at my opponent's team, first thing I thought was there's definitely a Trick Room mode. I didn't know what Alomomola brought to the team though in any shape, way, or form. I had no clue what that Pokemon was supposed to do. So I was like, maybe it's supposed to do like some Choice Specs damage with Trick Room up, or I really don't know. So Alomomola just stayed there as a wild card. I knew that Kartana and Tapu Koko were a notorious combination even in VGC 18, so I knew that was kind of like the fast mode of the team. And then it's rounded out by the slow mode of Cresselia, Aegislash, and I guess Alomomola. And then Charizard Y is there for probably Tailwind support, so that it can support with 2 different forms of speed in Trick Room and Tailwind. So that's what I was thinking of the team, probably like a Tailwind team as I'm looking at a team preview. First game going in, I'm pretty sure I can't even remember what I led with. I think I was mainly concerned. I think my main concern was Aegislash, and I think I end up leading Aegislash, not knowing that my opponents would be faster. So let's just hop into game 1 and see how it goes. Oh god, the music's playing, the music's playing, the music's playing. Oh no music ever. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, let's hop back into that. Alright. Alright, so, let me pause. Alright, so my opponent's going to lead with Aegislash, Cresselia, as I lead with Aegislash Zapdos. Pretty much my thought process with Zapdos was I wanted a bulky Pokemon that wasn't threatened to be like O-code or knocked out right away by anything on my opponent's team, and that's what Zapdos offers here, unless my opponent had something like Electrium Z Koko. I don't know how much that damage that actually does to my Zapdos set, but I assume a very hefty amount. But I knew Zapdos lived literally anything else, so I led Zapdos just to ensure that I had a Pokemon on the field that could take damage. I also had a feeling that my opponent might lead Tapu Koko, and I wanted to also benefit from the electric terrain and possibly do a little bit more damage here. So I get a little bit of chip on Aegislash, as I also thought there was maybe a slight chance Aegislash might want to switch out into something else, so I also had that in the back of my mind. But my opponent actually doesn't have switch-ins to a Thunderbolt really at all, as Alomomola, Charizard before, even Charizard after Mega Evolves, Tapu Koko's too frail, it doesn't want to take that, and Kartana's too frail, they don't want to take that. So yeah, actually my opponent doesn't have a switch-in into a Thunderbolt. I was mainly just thinking I wanted a little chip before I go for the Z move on the Aegislash slot, because I thought that my Aegislash set, even the standard set of like 252 on HP, 252 on special attack, I thought that can live a Ghostium Z, and then I also thought that me and my opponent would speed tie so that we could just see who goes first. Kind of just getting intel this first game. I wasn't huge on feeling I needed to win this first game. Obviously trying to win, but unfortunately my opponent's Aegislash moves first, and it also knocks us out with its Z move, and I did not know that that would knock out. Otherwise I would have played that turn differently. And what did Cresselia go for turn 1? It looks like Cresselia, can I please get a pause? It looks like Cresselia, I didn't even see what it went for. Oh yeah, Cresselia just went for a Side Shock. It didn't set up Trick Room. I guess my opponent thought I might have brought my slow mode and didn't want to set up Trick Room for my Amoonguss, so that I couldn't just spore the rest of my opponent's team and kind of put them in a tight spot. So we're going to backtrack, even though you guys already saw probably like a really good play that I made on my end. But either way, so we're going to lose our Aegislash to the Ghostium Z here, which is a huge deal. Aegislash was my main way of dealing with Cresselia, as oh yeah, I forgot, I just went for Thunderbolt on Aegislash, and I actually went for Ghostium Z on the Cresselia, as I wanted to I really wanted to get rid of Cresselia. I really don't have an adequate way of dealing with it other than Aegislash and Spore, so I really wanted to get rid of Cresselia. Here though, my opponent goes for the Alley Switch, and as you can see, I somewhat predicted that. I actually did not predict him to go for Alley Switch. I knew that it was definitely a thing that my opponent might have, but I particularly actually didn't think he'd go for it right there, considering that, I don't know, I think the better play was to just King Shield and Trick Room. I think every time that's the better play, so I didn't 100% consider that my opponent might go for the Alley Switch, but Alley Switch is such an annoying move and it causes so many 50-50s that I will have to expect this year that people will even use that move, even when it's not the most optimal the most optimal move to go for in certain situations, as I definitely in no way think that was the best move to go for, as Cresselia will later reveal Trick Room. What Cresselia, almost all Cresselias have Trick Room, unless it's that weird Zen headbutt set that tries to psych up from Snorlax. Other than that, you're typically going to see Trick Room on Cresselia. So I 100% thought the better players to Trick Room and Kingship with Aegislash. So I actually just doubled into the Cresselia slot. I went for Overheat and I went for Thunderbolt onto Cresselia. As you can see though, my opponent went for Ally Switch, so that put Aegislash in the Cresselia slot, which then means it takes an Overheat and that I look good and get a no-ko on Aegislash. And then I just get some added chip off on Cresselia with the Thunderbolt. Here my opponent brings in Tapu Koko. On this turn in particular, I was like, I gotta protect Blaziken. I need to figure out a way that, because I thought my opponent would attack into the Blaziken slot. Turns out my opponent makes a smart prediction here and just goes for my Zapdos and actually doubles into Zapdos. So a very smart prediction on my opponent's end, as I did just protect with Blaziken. And it's kind of an easy prediction considering Blaziken's at -2, so it's not going to be doing an overwhelming amount of damage to anything. I go for the Overheat on Tapu Koko, knowing that at -2 I'm going to do no damage to Cresselia, so obviously because my physical move is just close combat, which isn't going to be doing much damage. My opponent goes for another Thunderbolt into the Tapu Lele. With the Life Orb, it's going to do over half, and then the Side Shock into Blaziken. Blaziken will live that, thankfully. And here my opponent will protect their Tapu Koko. As I go for the superpower, almost die to Life Orb, and then go for the Psychic on the Tapu Koko, as my opponent makes a really good play here in Trick Rooms. I didn't think he would expect my Tapu Lele to be Scarf, as it hadn't been revealed until that turn. So a good play on my opponent's end, and that will be game here in the first game, as Tapu Koko is going to be slower than Tapu Lele, so it could easily knock it out, and Cresselia is going to be slower than Blaziken, so it can easily knock it out as well. So, yeah, we are now Blaziken's too fast, so Tapu Koko slower than Blaziken and Cresselia is slower than Zapdos, so both can be easily knocked out with a combination of Side Shock and Thunderbolt. So, pretty good played game by my opponent here, or Dazzling Gleam, but pretty well played game by my opponent. But I mainly think this all falls on my turn 1 move of losing Aegislash. I have like 100% I needed Aegislash to be able to win that first game. So I was very determined to just play Aegislash better and realize that I can't let it take a Ghost TMZ. And that we can maybe have a much better game 2. So let's do exactly that. Let's just hop into game 2. And here we are. So here we are for game 2. So going into this game, my main concern was once again... my main concern was, 1, having a better matchup against Aegislash, and then 2, my concern was probably bringing a Mungus so that I have a better answer to Trick Room Cresselia, because other than Aegislash, the rest of my team is actually all pretty fast, or decently fast. Zapdos isn't crazy fast, but it typically likes to just get tailwinds up, so the rest of my team is pretty fast. So I wanted to bring a Mungus so that Trick Room didn't kind of just... put us in too bad of a spot here. So that's mainly what I was thinking. However, though, I am going to be surprised by seeing Alomomola make an appearance for my opponent's team. And I actually still wasn't fully sure what Alomomola was going to bring to my opponent's team. I lead with Salamence Amungus, and I protect my Salamence turn 1 because I just think it's the bigger threat to my opponent's team at this point. Salamence just has that high speed stat and is able to do chunks of damage, so I knew Salamence looked like a bigger threat for my opponent. I knew that Alomomola could not only have Ice Beam, but then I also realized Tapu Koko would stab Dazzling Gleams. So that was my main thing. I was just like, I need to avoid Tapu Koko's stab Dazzling Gleams from just chunking Salamence before I'm able to get some damage off on Tapu Koko. So that's what I go for. Protect. I'm going to Sludge Bomb into the Tapu Koko slot. Thankfully, it turns out this is Scarf Soak Alomomola, and definitely would have never predicted this, because Scarf Soak Alomomola, even with the Jolly Nature, doesn't outspeed Pokemon like Tapu Koko, doesn't outspeed Pheromosa. So it's honestly not the best Soak Pokemon, but what it does bring is that surprise factor. It's not your typical Soak Tapu Fini. It brings that surprise factor to where you can kind of throw your opponent off guard, and then they are kind of overwhelmed by the fact that it is Soak. And that happens to an extent here. However, though, I am able to get that nice prediction. I get the Sludge Bomb off on Tapu Koko, but I also get a Poison. However, though, this turn I'm not going to be able to protect Salamence, and I actually protected Amungus because I thought my opponent would think Amungus was the bigger threat actually now. However, though, my opponent does not. Well, actually, here's what I thought. Here's what I thought on that turn. Let's go back. I thought. Oh, I didn't want to fully reset. Let's go one turn ahead. All right. I thought that my opponent on this turn would predict that I was just going to go for the Rage Powder to keep Amoonguss alive. Well, to keep Salamence alive. So I thought my opponent would just put his moves into Amoonguss by chance. Just by some very slim chance. My opponent might just be like, alright, he's gonna Rage Powder here, so might as well attack into Amoonguss. It doesn't really matter. However, though, my opponent made the smart play of still just going into Salamence and getting rid of it as a threat. And that's a huge Pokemon gone. Here, though, I just said I don't mind which one you get rid of here with the Scarf Soak. There's nothing I could do about that strategy on this turn. And I actually don't know why I didn't Rage Powder with Amoonguss. If that Soak actually would have went into Aegislash, that would have been detrimental. Aegislash would not have been able to take out, why is this non-slow? Aegislash would have not been able to have taken out, Kartana. And I really needed Kartana gone that turn. So not Rage Powdering there actually didn't make much sense. However, though, it did go into Amoonguss, which is good. My opponent gets rid of Amoonguss, which is way better because Amoonguss wouldn't have been able to really do much of anything on Charizard Y, considering that Amoonguss is obviously a grass type that would get obliterated by any fire type move, and at least Aegislash brings the wide guard shenanigans that Charizard Y has to at least worry about if it does want to go for Heat Wave. Here, though, I do make a pretty good play here. So I predict my opponent here to go for the Soak and probably Solar Beam into the Blaziken slot. And that's exactly what we get. And I just go for the Z move and stay in Shield form. And stay in Blade form and go for the Z move on Charizard. This is a bulky Charizard because it's a Tail Room aspect. It gets up Tailwind to be faster. So that's why I was able to live that. It's a bulky Charizard. However, though, with the speed boost I do have now on Blaziken, I can just go for a Hidden Power Ice, knock out Charizard, and then this is a Scarf Alomomola that's locked into Soak, so there's no chance of my opponent winning here. So that Z-move play of staying in Blade form with Aegislash actually just won us this game, as an overheat will take out Alomomola. So I feel really good about being able to make that prediction. And obviously I personally don't think that was the play for my opponent to make. I had no move. An overheat was going to do good damage to Charizard, but I still think the bigger threat there was slightly Aegislash, as Aegislash is my opponent should already kind of know that the most common Aegislash is the Ghost MZ, so I was going to be able to get off heaps of damage on Charizard that Blaziken would have had to hit an inaccurate move to do, and then obviously, I don't know, I just feel like my opponent's best move would have just been maybe going for Heat Wave that turn and just taking his chances with what Blaziken went for. I do understand seeing Blaziken as a little bit more of a threat considering the sun is up, and then also thinking I would King Shield with my Aegislash, but I was on the back end that plan. I needed that turn. I needed to make an aggressive play, so I do think that kind of could have been predicted, but I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad that we were able to snag game 2. So now we'll go into game 3, and here in game 3, my biggest concern now is I'm pretty sure that my opponent's not going to bring the Scarf Alomomola strategy again, even though it actually worked really well, and I only was able to best my opponent because of a pretty aggressive prediction that I had to make because I was on the back end. So I still think it's a viable option against my team, because it's hard for my team to deal with that strategy. However, though, I knew my opponent probably wouldn't go with it again just because it lost, and it seems that my opponent's team is just built of a bunch of different archetypes. It's built for the Trick Room option. It's built for the Tailwind option to just kind of obliterate your team once everything has once Tailwind is set up, and obliterate it with the hard-hitting attackers like Tapu Koko, Kartana, and Charizard Y. And then it's built for the Soak strategy. So it's a pretty well-built team. I like it, honestly. I like my opponent's team. But considering that strategy, that Soak strategy didn't work, I had a hunch that my opponent would go back to the roots of what did work, which was the first game of kind of going the Trick Room strategy. So here I knew I definitely still wanted to bring Aegislash, and then I would still have to I would want my Aegislash is still going to be a huge key to victory. Aegislash is just key in this entire game. This is my best way to get damage off on a lot of my opponent's Pokemon, especially Cresselia. So here my opponent's actually going to lead Aegislash Charizard, as I lead Amoonguss Zapdos. And obviously I'm not in the best position with the Amoonguss being out against Charizard, so I switch into my Amoonguss, assuming my opponent would stay in and go for a fire type move with Charizard, as I know that Zapdos threatens a very hefty hit on Charizard, but I definitely still, well, no, not until my opponent, like, obviously Thunderbolt would do good damage, but it's not going to knock out that bulky Charizard, so I really didn't see my opponent needing to switch out there, so that's why I definitely switched out Amoonguss. However, though, I just set up Tailwind with Zapdos because I want to be faster, and I don't see a Cresselia, and I didn't see Cresselia being switched in there, and I felt like speed was a huge thing I wanted that turn out of that turn. However, though, my opponent's going to switch out the Charizard and then go for a Z move with Aegislash, and that Z move is going to be targeted into Zapdos, so my opponent sees that as a pretty big threat to his Charizard. However, though, since I set up Tailwind, I can actually just roost off that damage, as Tapu Koko is going to be slower, and I did go for the double edge into the Zapdos slot. Here, this turn is a very crucial turn of the game. This upcoming turn is extremely crucial. I unfortunately did not know what I wanted to attack into on the, I think it's this turn. Let me make sure it's this turn. Yeah, it's definitely this turn. Alright, that turn I was extremely indecisive, and I did not know where I wanted to attack into, as I had a high hunch that, alright, Tapu Koko can likely be switched out for Aegislash, so do I want to double edge into that slot? Tapu Koko can maybe stay in. Do I want to bulldoze and maybe go for an electric type move into that slot? Do I just want to double into Cresselia, considering I have Tailwind up and it probably wants to set up a Trick Room? What is my best route on that turn? And I accidentally, as you can you guys see that on the side? Yeah, you can see that. I accidentally went, actually, as you can see, it says I only have 5 seconds left. I went all the way to timer. My 45 seconds ran out, and my moves were chosen for me. So instead of getting a double edge off, which would have done much damage to either one of these two targets, I unfortunately only get a hyper voice off, which does so little damage to both of these. And then I set up, and then I just go for another Tailwind, and I needed that chip damage off so badly, as you guys will see later in this game. Here I'm forced to go into Amoonguss and protect my Salamence. My opponent does target into the Zapdos slot and goes for a Side Shock into the Zapdos slot. So very good play on my opponent's end, as I'm now on the back end of this game. Here I'm going to protect Amoonguss and go into Aegislash. So my opponent makes another good play and Shadow Balls into the Salamence slot and goes for a Side Shock, because that does heaps of damage to my Aegislash. My Aegislash is slower than my opponent's, and another Side Shock still won't take me out. So my play 100% is to at least try to Spore and see if my opponent will won't switch in Tapu Koko, and if Tapu Koko is switched in, I will obliterate it with a Z move. So that is what we're able to do. Electric Terrain's back up, so I can't do any Sporing, unfortunately. And Trick Room still has one more turn, so I could have went for a Spore, or I could have went for some move with Amoonguss, but Amoonguss Sludge Bomb's not going to do almost anything to either of these two. And I was able to get that. Let me actually go back. Let's go back to this turn. I'm able to get the Shadow Ball off into Cresselia, but if I would have doubled into Cresselia earlier, this Shadow Ball would have knocked it out, because I wouldn't have put Cresselia into range for its Pinch Berry, and that Shadow Ball would have been enough to knock it out. So the fact that Cresselia stays alive that turn is going to be so huge to this end game, as I now do have to King Shield with my Aegislash, and I switch in Zapdos here. We get a Flamethrower and a Zapdos. It does somehow live, and then we do see the Side Shock into Aegislash. Here I'm going to switch back in Salamence, as I do expect a Fire type move to go into the Aegislash slot, and I will lose Zapdos to a Side Shock, as my opponent does have the Tailwind up, and that's going to make him a tad bit faster. Here I'm going to protect Salamence and also protect Amoonguss to stall out Tailwind. And here I go for Rage Powder, and I go for the double edge into Charizard, and Charizard will live that double edge. And if I was to knock out Cresselia early, if I would have knocked out Cresselia, that would have put my opponent in a position to where Aegislash would already had to been out, and I would have just been in an overall better position. I do think the end game would have still been tricky on how it would have unfolded, but I do still think I would have had a much better shot at winning this game if I wouldn't have wasted that turn and not have gotten any chip damage on those 2 Pokemon on my opponent's side. Not saying I would have won the game, but definitely think it would have been a little bit closer. And unfortunately, my opponent is going to take game 3, so GG's to Jim. I unfortunately, not only am I a decent bit rusty, as I haven't been able to practice as much as I would like, as I haven't even been focusing on my channel, so you could probably assume that also my efforts toward VGC haven't been where I would hope they were at this point. However, though, no excuses though. The game definitely was a huge knock on the game was that turn where I got hyper voice damage, which was so little damage off on Aegis/N Cresselia there. So if I could go back and I can actually get that damage off, who knows how that would have changed the game. Once again, don't think it would have necessarily meant I won, but definitely think it would have added a different dynamic to the end game. Overall though, Jim played it well, especially on those turns where he kept predicting like, alright, this thing can't protect, so let me just double into that slot. And he was able to get some really solid damage when I was trying to make defensive switches to get back into the game. So overall though, Jim's a competent batter and he played the game well. So shouts out to him. I'll link his channel in the description, so definitely go check out his site as well. And I do apologize to Jim that we had to play in on Showdown, as this league is supposed to be in game. But like I told you guys in the introduction, I am not finished with Ultra Sun and Moon, so that's the reason why we unfortunately can't play in game until I am able to obtain the Mega Stones, because I don't have a single one as of right now. But once I'm there, we'll start playing these games in game, and then we'll have a little bit more fun in game, have those animations for you guys, and this should be fun. And if you guys are unaware, once again, I know I didn't really go into depth, but if you're unaware of what the EPL is, it is a very fun VGC league, and I know there's not many VGC leagues out there, but it's really cool. It's a VGC league where we're doing best of 3s, and we're all just getting solid practice for this VGC 18 meta, so that when we go to competitions or just in general, we feel more better about our skill set. And best of 3 is just so much more fun than best of 1. So I had loads of fun in this game, and I can't wait for the future weeks. I appreciate you guys watching though. I gotta get the heck out of here, so have a great rest of your day, and probably tripping out on all my hair being gone, but yeah, new year, new me, I guess. But that's not the reason why I did it. I just got tired of having that much hair. But either way though, guys, you all have a great rest of your day. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, hope you had a Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, or just had a very solid couple of days off, because most jobs won't make you work, at least. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for the continued support, even as I did have that small hiatus. I'm out. Peace.